Hey guys, and welcome to my first miniature painting video for Hate by Cool Me or Not. Today I painted the mother, so I hope you enjoy that. I decided to paint her before the tyrant because I felt I could paint her in a day and do it kind of quick and get it out to you guys so that you guys could realize that I am actually going to be painting this. Even with the broken finger, I'm still going to be doing that for you. And the fact that I painted a miniature for you guys with the broken finger deserves a like, doesn't it? I think it does. But in all honesty, I hope you do enjoy the video. I had a blast painting her. Real quick, before we get into it, I just want to let you know that I did receive my first mug from my merch store. So if you like coffee or tea or mugs, link in the description below. Now that that plug's out of the way, let's get to painting. Alright guys, so to start things out, I'm just doing a basic skin tone. It has basic in its name, and that's pretty much how I use it. In general, this is how I start all skin tones. I'll do the base coat and the basic skin tone, and then I can add tints, I can lighten up, I can darken, I can just go from there. But I much prefer to kind of start here to kind of paint all the skin. Now, half of her body on her left side is like covered in like bark branch. It's kind of brown, but for now, again, because I can tint this, I'm just going to paint her entire body in this basic skin tone. So even on the branches, I'm not going to do the full kind of branch on her left arm. As you can see, I kind of stop right where it kind of starts, and you can see where it starts because it's actually a different piece that was assembled, which I did not fix. I didn't change at all because it's quite easy. Just to say that that's, you know, it fits in with the cracks and the roots and all that stuff that's going on there. She does have hooves, by the way, so you don't have to paint all the way down the basic skin tone. There's going to be some fur at the bottom there you're going to stop. But otherwise, really quick and easy. Now, I'm using Agrax Earthshade to shade this, and I think it works great, by the way. I don't even have to ever like mess with the, you know, painting on those kind of branch, vein-looking stuff like on her chest and on her face, mostly. In the concept art, it looks like it's also on her left leg, like it's kind of brown and it almost looks kind of sickly, but none of that transferred to the mold. And so what I would suggest to you, unless you're a better painter than I, you're going to spend more time on it than I did, don't put the Agrax Earthshade on her left leg. Just paint it like a normal leg, and you should be fine. So there's a little bit on her face, on her chest, on her left arm, and then in her crotch area, but otherwise that's pretty much it. So right here, like on the left leg, I wouldn't worry about that at all. I end up pretty much painting it normal anyway, but it doesn't look quite as good in my opinion. Maybe I'm being a little too critical because I ended up putting this wash on, and unless I paint it over the whole thing, it's not going to work out. Now I have a basic skin tone out again, and this is for kind of right under her breast on the left side. Is not it should look more clean, I guess. It looks like the branches don't quite go over there in the art, so I'm not doing it here, doesn't do it in the mold. And then doing a blend, so you don't see just kind of a straight line where my brush ended. So again, it's pretty watered down, and I'm dragging the paint towards the rest of the skin. Anytime you're kind of trying to blend with a highlight, drag towards the color that you have on your brush. So if I have basic skin tone, I'm going to be dragging towards the basic skin tone. That's because when you lift your brush, you end up kind of leaving a small pool there. It's a little bit darker where you leave your brush, just invariably, especially with how watered down these are. Now I have Elfic Flesh, and this is going to be my highlight. I'm not going to really darken too much here. I could have taken a flesh wash and perhaps done under her breast, and then maybe her more defined muscles and any kind of crevice like that, maybe in her armpit and her outstretched arm. But I don't find it really worth it, and looking at the kind of source material more than the art here, but the art as well, she's very fair skinned. There's not some heavy shadows. There's no real dark skin anywhere. If you look like on the box, she's like glow in the dark white, and I'm not going to do that. I wanted her to seem kind of human, kind of plant, almost dryad like, as opposed to maybe mystical or ghostly white. I feel I couldn't sell that as much. In the concept art in the game, she seems like she actually has human skin. She's not like glow in the dark white. So this is kind of a happy medium here, but it's really just one coat. I did 2 coats in a few spots that either needed it for whatever reason, or just needed, you know, some extra attention. Now, for her nipple, I'm doing Cadian Fleshtone. You can pick however dark or light you want or whatever. This was kind of what I did. I think it fit fairly well with the rest of the skin, and I didn't want it to like really clash or draw too much attention, even though it's kind of centered, just because there's so much else going on in this mini that I want to make sure that that's grabbed as well. I didn't want it to contrast with like her dark hair and her dark kind of arm branch tree thing. Now, there's going to be a lot of brown on this mini, though you'll be surprised, and you probably saw on the thumbnail how much I actually have. So I have dark stone here, and this is going to be for these kind of rock earth things. What I'm imagining is that underneath her, she's like sprouting up. I don't know if she was buried or what. I actually haven't read the comics per se, though I know a bit about them. But she's like, this is obviously coming out of the ground, and so there's like pieces and chunks of earth and vines and branches kind of wrapping itself and bringing it up with her. A very, very cool sculpt, by the way. This is a fascinating sculpt. Just a really, really unique and cool design, and really happy and pleased that I was able to paint her. And definitely an easy pick for the first one to kind of get it out quick. She paints up quick. I had about 2.5 hours of recorded footage here, so about 3 hours total. Sometimes I do a little touch up or a few extra layers off camera, but nothing really major here. Once you have that base coated, you're going to get uniform gray and just do a dry brush. Nothing else is painted yet. Dry brush is fine. It's fine if it's a little messy on those branches. You're going to paint it a dark brown anyway. Now, determining what's rock and what's not, maybe you can struggle with that. Whatever you paint, great. That's going to be rock, right? It's not actually a huge deal. Don't fret about it. But you can kind of see what I did here. But otherwise, yeah, it's a quick dry brush. Now we have uniform gray out, and I'm actually not dry brushing this. I just kind of want this as kind of a high-level highlight to pop out either definition and shape, or there's all these little bumps. And while I didn't choose all of the bumps to be rock, because they're intermixed even within the branches, and I didn't want to deal with that, I did highlight them up really bright, like they're pebbles here. And so, again, you could, I guess, paint every one you saw if you wanted. If so, do it after you paint the branches, because otherwise you're going to be painting around these little dots, and that'd be annoying. But I didn't worry too much about it. Alright, next up we have Fur Brown. These are for her hooves. Again, I wanted these to stand out too, and they're right next to the brown branches, and they're brown as well. In the concept art, you can barely even tell they're there. In the mini, it's very obvious. So I went with kind of a more reddish brown, and I'm really happy I did. I think it kind of blends in, and it keeps with kind of the warmer colors that we're having here so far. It looks natural. I'm going to do a little bit of blending. We'll get to that in just a moment. But otherwise, you're pretty much painting the hoof and kind of the fur tufts above them. Alright, now I have Monster Brown out. This is going to be that part where I blend. It's also going to be a highlight, so I'll put it a little bit on the hoof, a little bit, there's like a stipple dab on the texture there. And then, again, I'm bringing it from the skin down into the color I'm trying to paint. So where I want it thickest is on that already kind of painted fur there. So I'm dragging it down. Now, this is kind of interesting. So I'm using Oak Brown, which I hated using, by the way. It's probably my least favorite color to use. It's a beautiful brown, and I love the color, but the paint, for whatever reason, mine hasn't mixed well, and an army painter struggles with that sometimes, but it just... It didn't end up doing the coverage I wanted. I had to do multiple coats. I had to keep a heavy brush. I had to clean up. It was a mess. But I'm not going to bore you with that. Hopefully, if you use Oak Brown, it's better than mine. I'm not going to judge it just based off one bottle here. However, you'll notice I'm not painting everything. I'm just kind of outlining everything. Because I'm using my Winsor & Newton 7 brush that's a little bit nicer, a little bit more expensive, and has a little bit of an easier and smaller tip. I want to just kind of use that for the heavy control, and slowly, this was the most time-consuming part of the entire thing, by far, was doing these, but just outlining kind of her body and the rocks, and just making sure that I do as little damage as possible. And in general, I think I did a pretty good job, which means you could too, because I'm fairly unskilled in pretty much everything. Yeah, just take your time. As long as you take your time, you'll be fine. Now, you'll notice I've actually already swapped to my kind of regular brush that I'll use for kind of heavier paint jobs and broader areas, and I can just kind of plop it on. Now that it's outlined, I can just throw this on, no problem, and fill in the blanks and kind of do it really quick. I think it speeds it up a lot to get it all done out of the way, and then you just wrap it up real quick. Okay, now I'm putting the Stirland Battlemire on now. I'm taking a break, mainly because I want it to be able to dry. Even then, I probably should have put it on earlier, just based off of how long everything else takes. In fact, it's kind of hard because I wanted to do the brown branches first, so I get all the way to the base, and I'll have to worry about trying to paint around this textured paint here. So you definitely want to do the brown first, but maybe you just need to be more patient than I am and wait a little bit. It does take a while to dry, depending on how thick you're doing it. I like it to be kind of clumpy and not even. If you wanted it compact, you could scrape it really thin, like it's been treaded on. But I wanted it to look a little bit more natural, and so it's kind of gloppy everywhere, and so it takes a little bit to dry. So I'm trying to do this as early as you can, or as early as you're comfortable, so that you're not. Ideally, it's drying while you're painting other parts of the miniature. So for instance, it's now drying while I take the ochre brown and paint on the eyebrows. Obviously, this means I had to take out the ochre brown after I was already done, but it is what it is. You know, maybe you can organize it better where it makes sense to you, but that's kind of my line of thought everywhere. And two little pupils, I touch them up off camera. Never quite happy with them. Her eyes are kind of weird because she has really thick eyelids, but whatever. Flat Earth, dry brush. I'm doing it very heavy on the twig part, match the concept art, and it just kind of makes sense on the ends of everything. Now, I will say, I'm going to dry brush everything. If I could do this again, I might mask her off. I might just not. I mean, I get it on her from the dry brush. I'm not careful enough. Perhaps you should do it by hand when you're close to her. And so I get it on her leg, and I get it on her shoulder, and on her face, and on her stomach, and really kind of everywhere. So I had to touch that off camera. That's that extra half hour I included in my time. Kind of rough. I'm not concerned about the rocks at all. I think the rocks are fine. But she's so fair-skinned it shows up. Now, Parasite Brown's out now, and notice I'm just kind of splotching it on. And the reason is anything you're doing of nature, the more colors you add, I feel the better it looks. I do this as the same thing when I'm weathering armor, and I do the same thing with nature. It's kind of funny because they're polar opposites, but just adding more colors, more visual variety, more visual complexity really helps sell it. This is a subtle difference. Just a little tint of orange here is what this ends up looking as. You don't even really pick it out when you just look at the miniature. It just looks kind of like the highlight, especially with the other highlights. However, as a whole, I think it makes it look more natural. Rarely are you going to get a branch that's just two colors, right? Even if it's maybe not orange hued or something like that, there's going to be variations in shade, and I'm not doing that. I just had two colors. I didn't even use a wash. So just splotching it on here where it kind of makes sense, maybe as a highlight, maybe as this coloration, it doesn't really matter. It's almost haphazard. I'm not trying to make it a pattern. I'm not trying to do 80% coverage. I'm just doing it until I like it. And if I don't like it, I'll come back with the other color and then put that on it as well, or maybe a different color. I'm fine with how I ended up, but literally that's my process. I just kind of throw it on there until I think it looks good. Now, she's got some leaves in her hair. Supposedly, some of them seem molded, some of them don't. It's hard because it's in that hair texture. Just paint whatever you want. You can see what I painted here with some white gray. Rarely in anything in nature is pure white, so I'm doing white gray here. It's a very close off-white. I very much enjoy white gray. Use it all the time. Okay, now, supposedly this is dry by now. It's actually not quite, and I discover that. But I got the Parasite Brown out now, and I'm just throwing that on the dirt as a haphazard dry brush, sort of, kind of, covering all of it. Again, more colors the better. Make it look natural. You're going to see what I'm going to do in a second here with the Athonian Camoshade, and I'm going to pop it on there. Yes, that is a green wash on top of the kind of orange dry brush I just did on top of the brown. Trust me, I think it looks great when it dries up. This green, especially because I'm putting it in light, I'm not letting it pool super heavy. It just kind of shifts the color and makes it look earthy, muddy, kind of nasty. I'm going to cover a lot of it anyway, but if any of it shows, I want it to, again, just look kind of messy. Now, the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a little bit on the branches, kind of part way up. It just helps blend it together. You don't want the mini to look it's set on top of a base and they don't belong together. So adding a little bit of wash up kind of the branches helps with that. All right, well, we're done painting her, so now we're going to do some basing. I'm going to do a little bit here, trying to do her justice. And again, so much of Hate is barren and doesn't have a lot of plant life or anything like that. And so I really wanted her to kind of stand out and be fairly green. I wanted her to look like In fact, I didn't want to blend it on the outside. I thought about maybe putting some more deserty stuff on the outer rim, but I wanted her to almost look like she doesn't belong there. I wanted her to almost look like she's springing up out of it, and she's this green splotch here. Now, what I have here is actually sheet moss, like for plants, like potted plants inside, and I just tore up pieces that I liked. Again, you're going to want it to be to scale, so really small, but sheet moss works great. I also have some, what is this? This is the Summer Undergrowth by the Battlefields range of Army Painter. Great stuff. You can pick it apart and pick what parts you want. They have yellow pieces and green pieces and tan pieces, so you can kind of get a variety of stuff there. And then afterwards, I'm going to get some Green Stuff World Natural Leaf Litter. They're literally just little pieces of leaves. They can even buy a hole punch for a leaf, where you just take little leaf shapes out of a leaf. Again, she had leaves in her hair, so I figured, let's put some leaves on the ground here. You're only do this before you put anything else on the base, because you want them to take up their space. Otherwise, you're gonna cover up too big you won't have a big enough spot to really place them afterwards. So lastly, we're gonna have Moss Green by Army Painter, again from the Battlefields collection, and I just sprinkle it on. Now, I'm trying to make this look kind of haphazard. I don't want to cover everything. I want to cover about 90 to 95% of it, though. So I'm kind of lightly sprinkling. Normally I would almost dump it on and then shake it off. I'm kind of taking my time, and because I want to be able to control how much coverage I do. Now, at the very end, we got to paint the base. She is a mercenary. They have gray rims. I'm going to keep the rim colors here, so I've got the uniform gray back out. Now, this is a little thick. Don't do what I did and try to use your uniform gray that you painted a long time ago, even on your wet palette. Make sure you got some nice paint that's not clumpy. I had to touch this up. It was kind of rough, but, you know, tried to rush this apparently. So afterwards, I get my Tesser's Dull Coat out, we do a matte varnish, and this is the final miniature. This is how she looks like. I hope you enjoyed watching kind of my process and hearing my thought process behind it, and why I did it in this order, or why I, painted it where I did, or the colors I did. Let me know what you think about the base. Again, it's gonna look really odd next to everything else. It's gonna be kind of crazy seeing this green. It's gonna really stand out. Obviously there's the Undead faction. I'm gonna do something kind of similar with them. But in general, she's gonna be around people on just nasty looking kind of, post-apocalyptic wasteland scenario. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. I'll be painting the Tyrant here soon, and perhaps another one following that. So if you have any suggestions or have a favorite tribe you want me to tackle, comment below. Again, if you liked the video, hit that like button. It does help the video, helps the channel a ton. Subscribe if you want to see more board game coverage, more miniature painting, more topics, more Kickstarter news, kind of article style videos, all that stuff. If you want to actually support the channel and actually throw me a bone, Patreon link below, merch store below. Go ahead and check those out. They help a ton, trust me. And I will talk to you guys soon.